Before Marvel's Wolverine comes out, there's a comparison I've wanted to make for a while now. And if you want to check out my other comparison video where I compared Marvel's Wolverine to the Marvel's Spider-Man games, go and check that out and let me know what you think down in the comment section below. And now that I've spent more time going back through X-Men Origins Wolverine, I feel like the best place to start is going to be the combat. Because when people bring up Origins, this is usually the first thing they talk about. And yeah, the game came out in 2009. Obviously, Marvel's Wolverine is going to look better. The animations are going to be better. The character models are going to look better as well. None of that is really interesting to compare. What I want to know is which game actually understands how Wolverine should fight. Because Origins, for all the things you can say about that game, understood that part pretty damn well. Wolverine was fast. He was aggressive. You could close the distance on people almost instantly. The claws actually felt dangerous. And the game gave you a lot more freedom in combat. Now, we've seen a pretty good amount of combat from Marvel's Wolverine at this point, and there are definitely some similarities between the two. But there are also some pretty big differences. So instead of throwing random clips next to each other and saying, this looks better than this, I want to actually break it down. So starting with speed and aggression. This is something I noticed almost immediately when I started playing Origins again. Wolverine is really fast in this game, and I don't necessarily mean running speed. I mean, once you're actually in a fight, there's almost always something you can be doing. You're attacking one guy, you grab somebody else, you knock somebody away, you're already moving towards the next enemy. There's really not much standing around. The game doesn't make Wolverine feel overly defensive either. You can dodge, you can block, obviously those things are there, but I never really feel like the game wants me hanging back waiting for somebody else to do something. When you walk into a room full of enemies, I don't want the feeling to be, alright, how am I going to survive all of these guys? It should almost be the opposite. Even when you're getting shot from multiple directions, even when you've got a bunch of enemies around you, the game gives you enough ways to stay on them that you rarely feel completely stuck. And I think that's where the aggression comes from. It's not just Wolverine swinging his claws really fast. It's the fact that the game constantly lets you move forward. Now, looking at Marvel's Wolverine, I actually think Insomniac is going for something a little different. It still looks aggressive, but I don't think it looks as loose as Origins. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Origins can get kind of crazy. Sometimes you're bouncing around, attacking whoever happens to be closest, lunging across the room, and it almost feels like you're just letting Wolverine loose. The new game looks like you're going to have a little more control over that. You can see Logan actually reading attacks, but once he gets going, he still looks relentless. That's the important part. Because one of the things I absolutely did not want from this game was Wolverine basically fighting like a heavier Spider-Man. I love those games, but the style doesn't fit Logan, and I think everybody else can agree. Spider-Man should be bouncing around people. He should look athletic and almost effortless. Wolverine should look like he's trying to go through somebody, and that's the difference I'm seeing here. There's weight behind him. Even when he's moving quickly, he doesn't look light. When he grabs somebody, it looks forceful. When he hits somebody, they move. And when somebody creates distance, Logan looks like he immediately wants that distance gone. So I actually think these games might get to the same feeling in two different ways. Origins does it by giving you this really fast, loose combat system where you can constantly stay on offense. Marvel's Wolverine looks like it's going to slow certain things down just enough to make every attack feel heavier without making Logan himself feel slow. If they can bounce that correctly, I think that could be a huge improvement because I don't want the speed to come from Logan looking weightless. I want it to come from how quickly he decides, all right, I'm going after that guy now. And that takes us right into the next part. Let's get into the claws and the brutality of these two games. Obviously, we have to talk about the claws because you can get everything else right, but if Wolverine's claws don't feel dangerous, what are we doing? And Origins had absolutely no problem with that. This game gets nasty, especially once you get further into it and you've got more attacks unlocked and current ones leveled up. You've got the dismemberment, the finishers, environmental kills, and you can throw people into things, Origins knew exactly what kind of game it wanted to be. It wasn't embarrassed by Wolverine being violent, and I think that's a big reason why people still bring up this game 17 years later. The claws don't feel like a visual effect. They actually change the way the combat feels. And there's another little thing Origins does that I really like, and I think everybody else can appreciate it. You can actually put the claws away manually. It doesn't completely change the combat system or suddenly turn the game into some deep hand-to-hand fighter, but you can retract them. You can walk around without them out, and then when it's time to fight, bring them out. It's a small thing, but I think all players can appreciate it. And earlier in the game of Origins, we also get the bone claws. I think that's another cool part of Origins that sometimes gets overlooked when people only talk about the violence. You actually get to see and use Wolverine before the adamantium, and the bone claws just have a completely different look to them. Then once Logan gets the adamantium, you get that change into the Wolverine that everybody recognizes. That progression is so much fun, and it's something Origins could do because of the story it was telling. Now, I don't expect Marvel's Wolverine to copy that. We don't even know if Bone Claws would make sense for the story Insomniac is telling, but the ability to retract the claws, I would be pretty surprised if we don't have some version of that. We've already seen how much detail Insomniac is putting into Logan himself, so being able to sheath and unsheath them whenever we want just feels like one of those little things that should be there. And I think we can all agree that we hope it is. Because again, it doesn't need to be some giant gameplay mechanic. Sometimes it's just cool walking around, hitting a button, and hearing the claws come out. Now, when it comes to the actual violence, Marvel's Wolverine obviously has a massive advantage in what they're able to show. There's so much more detail. The wounds, the animation, how enemies react when they're hit, the finishers, and the way Logan physically moves somebody before attacking them. Everything can look more believable now, but I don't think the question should be which game has better gore, because of course the 2026 game can show more detail than something from 2009. What I care about is whether the attacks feel just as dangerous. That's where Origins deserves credit. Even with old graphics, when you hit somebody with those claws, sometimes the game goes completely overboard with it. You'll finish somebody and just think, all right, that guy is definitely not getting back up. Marvel's Wolverine looks a little different. There's still a lot of violence, but it feels more deliberate and more personal. There's a moment where Logan almost looks angry at the specific person he's fighting instead of just going through a canned finishing move. And I think that could end up being a big difference between the two games. Origins is almost arcade-like with some of its brutality. Marvel's Wolverine looks like it wants the violence to tell you something about Logan. And if they can pull that off throughout the entire game, not just the big trailer moments, I think that could be really good. But this is also one of those categories where I'm not giving the new game anything for free. Origins already proved it. We know how violent the game gets. We know how many different things you can do. Marvel's Wolverine looks incredible from what we've seen. Now I want to see whether that variety lasts for an entire game. Now, real quick before we keep going, if you guys are enjoying these Wolverine videos, please hit the like button for me. It really does help these videos get pushed out to more people. And if you're new here, subscribe, because I'm going to be doing more of these comparisons leading all the way up to the game coming out. Also, a huge thank you to everyone who's become a member of the channel. And if you want to support the channel a little extra, memberships are there. But either way, just watching, commenting, and sharing these videos helps a ton. Okay, let's talk about the movement. The movement might be the category I care about the most, because Origins has one mechanic that Marvel's Wolverine really needs to compete with, and that's the lunge. And if you've ever played Origins, it might not look like a big deal just watching somebody else use it. But once you actually play the game, you realize how important it is. The lunge basically changes the entire way you move through combat. You've got somebody shooting at you from across the room, go get them. You finish somebody and there's another enemy 20 feet away, go get them. There's somebody standing on a platform, you can usually find a way to close the distance immediately. And once you start getting comfortable with the targeting, you can change those movements together. That's when Origins starts feeling really good. You're not fighting one enemy, stopping, finding somebody else, running over there and starting another fight. It all becomes one fight. That's what the lunge does. It connects everything together. And I think that's why people remember it. It's not just a cool Wolverine move, it fixes a gameplay problem. Wolverine is a close range character. Most of what you want to do requires being right on top of somebody. So if the game constantly puts enemies 10, 20, 30 feet away from you, you need a fast way to deal with that. Origins basically says, fine, just throw Wolverine at them. Perfect. That's perfect. And I really hope Marvel's Wolverine gives us the same freedom because, yeah, we've seen Logan leap at people, we've seen him rush enemies, and we've even seen him grab people. There's definitely no shortage of movement. If Marvel's Wolverine gives us the exact same freedom that the lunge did in Origins, with Insomniac's animation quality on top of it, that could be ridiculous. Don't replace what worked, build on it. Imagine having the freedom of Origins' lunge system, but now having more ways to enter the fight. Maybe sometimes Logan lunges, maybe he tackles somebody, maybe sometimes he grabs them, or uses the environment, which we've already seen in the gameplay. Maybe the position of the enemy changes what happens. That's where the new game can take this much further. With Marvel's Wolverine, I'm still waiting to see how much control is behind all of the awesome looking animations. And now that's going to bring us into enemy interactions and animations. Now, this is where things get a little more interesting because this category isn't just about which game has prettier animations. Obviously, we know the answer to that. What I'm looking at is how many different ways Wolverine can actually interact with somebody during a fight. Origins gives us quite a bit. You can grab enemies, throw them, use different executions, knock them into the environment or into each other, launch them away from you. You can attack somebody on the ground. You can lunge into them from a distance. You can even shoot them into the air and do a lot of aerial attacks. And depending on what you're doing, you get different reactions. For a game from 2009, that's a lot that's there. But after you play for long enough, you do start recognizing things. You've seen that execution before. You've seen that grab. You know what animation is about to happen. And that doesn't ruin the combat. It's just one of those areas where the age starts showing. This is probably where Marvel's Wolverine has the biggest opportunity to separate itself because the enemy interactions we've seen already look much more fluid. And I think fluid is actually more important than just having a giant number of animations. I don't want to constantly feel the game switching between gameplay and finishing animations. I want it to look like one thing naturally led into the next. You should parry somebody. That turns into a counter. You grab them. Maybe you use them against another enemy. Maybe Logan takes their weapon. Maybe where you stand changes what happens. That kind of stuff is what keeps melee combat from getting old. Because even if I'm pressing some of the same buttons, what I'm seeing on screen isn't always exactly the same. Enemy reactions are a huge part of that too. And I think this is something modern games are just able to do so much better. If I slash somebody from one direction, I want them reacting to that hit. If I knock somebody into a wall, I want that wall to matter. If I grab somebody near part of the environment, maybe that creates another option. That's the kind of stuff I'm watching for. And from the footage we've seen, Marvel's Wolverine looks really promising here. Wolverine shouldn't only be standing at sword distance slashing at somebody. He fights dirty, he grabs people, he tackles them, he'll use whatever is right in front of him. And I want the game to let us do that. The one thing I'm cautious about is trailer footage, because trailers are always going to show the coolest stuff. Of course they are. They're trying to sell us the game. So when I see all these different finishers and counters, I'm not asking whether they look good. They look great. I'm asking how often I'm going to start seeing the exact same ones. If I'm 10 hours into Marvel's Wolverine and I'm still seeing Logan do things I haven't seen before, that's a huge win. If I've seen almost everything by hour 2, that can get old really fast. That's why I think animation variety and enemy interaction really need to be looked at together. The animations are what we see. The interaction is what actually makes those animations happen. And that's what determines whether that combat stays interesting. Now let's get into the final category, which is the Wolverine fantasy. And this last one is really where I stop caring about which game is newer, because this is the whole point. Does it feel like Wolverine? That's it. If you took away the graphics, took away the release dates, took away the Insomniac name, which combat actually makes sense for Logan? Origins has a really strong argument because almost everything in that combat system pushes you towards behaving like Wolverine. The healing means you're willing to take damage. The lunge means you're consistently closing the distance. The rage gives you a reason to keep fighting aggressively. The claws are dangerous. You can put them away and bring them back out. You can grab people, you can throw them, you can use the environment. The game basically keeps telling you, stop standing around and go fight somebody. And that works. And that's why even now, when I go back to this game, I can get past the old graphics and some of the dated stuff pretty quickly. You can see a lot of the similarities between animations, the environment, and even some of the attacks. And that's what has me excited, because it doesn't look like they looked at Wolverine and just said, all right, let's take one of the other combat systems and change the character. This looks built around Logan feeling heavier, looking meaner. He gets hit, he gets angry, he heals, closes distance, he uses his whole body when he fights. And the combat looks uncomfortable sometimes, in a good way. It doesn't look clean. Wolverine himself shouldn't look clean. He can be skilled. Obviously, Logan knows how to fight. But when things get bad, I want the skill mixed with the fact that this guy can take punishment most people can't. But when things get bad, I want the skill mixed with the fact that this guy can take punishment most people can't. That should change how he fights. If somebody knows they can heal from getting stabbed or shot, they're going to be willing to do things a normal person wouldn't do. Origins understands that. Marvel's Wolverine looks like it does too. So if you ask me right now which one has better combat, I wouldn't be able to tell you that. We haven't played Marvel's Wolverine. I'm not going to watch a trailer and declare it better than a game I can actually pick up and play right now. But if you ask me whether I think Insomniac is on the right track, yes, absolutely. Because I can already see a lot of the things that I love about Origins showing up again. Not copied one for one, but just the same understanding of what Wolverine should be. The aggression is there, the speed is there, the brutality is definitely there, the movement looks good, and the enemy interactions look way more advanced. Now they have to put it all together and make it feel good for 15, 20, however many hours this game ends up being. That's the real test. Origins set the bar. Marvel's Wolverine has every advantage in the world when it comes to technology and what Insomniac can do now. But they still have to clear it. And I actually like that this old game gives us something to measure the new one against. And that's why I wanted combat to be the first one of these comparisons. There's a lot more we can get into between Origins and Marvel's Wolverine, especially as we start getting more information on the new game. Boss fights are definitely one I want to talk about. We're going to get into stealth, progression, the environments, the story. There's a lot here. So if there's a specific comparison you want me to do next, throw it down in the comments. Now, if you enjoyed the video, please do me a favor and hype up the channel and hit the like button. I absolutely appreciate your guys' time. And if you want to see more, then subscribe. If you're not subscribed, share my content with someone you might think will enjoy it and let them know to like, share, comment, and subscribe as well. And if you want to support the channel even further, then go ahead and become a channel member. I absolutely appreciate your support. Now, I hope you guys have a good day, good night, and a good morning wherever you're at, and I'll see you in the next one.